The earth stirs under the weight of ice and storm. Vast glaciers carve the land, stretching endlessly like frozen giants. Plains lie buried in snow, and forests echo with the low growls of unseen predators. For early humans, this world is both home and enemy. Their shelters are fragile, their tools primitive, their lives uncertain. Each night brings hunger, each day a new threat. Here, survival is no guarantee. It is a relentless contest with nature, where only courage and cunning keep humanity alive. They move across the land in small bands, rarely more than a few dozen souls, 20 to 30 people, bound together by blood, trust, and necessity. Their homes are never permanent, sometimes a cave, sometimes the hollow beneath trees, or a shelter of branches and hides thrown up against the wind. Children cling to mothers, hunters sharpen stone tips, and elders share what wisdom they can. Yet hunger follows like a shadow, sickness spreads without cure, and rival groups wait beyond the horizon. In this fragile existence, every sunrise is borrowed time, every breath a triumph. The mammoth towers above the plains, a walking fortress of flesh and bone. To bring it down means food, warmth, and tools for weeks, but a single misstep can cost lives. In the shadows, saber-toothed cats prowl, their long fangs made for striking the slow and the vulnerable. And when storms roll in with winds like knives and snow that blinds, humans face nature's harshest trial. Courage alone is not enough. To survive this world, they must learn to think, to plan, and to outwit even death itself. Necessity shapes invention. A rough stone, struck just right, becomes a cutting blade sharper than claws. Bronze, hardened in fire, transforms into a spear capable of piercing thin hide. These simple tools shift the balance. Humans are no longer only the hunter, but hunters themselves. And then comes fire, the greatest gift of all. Flames drive back beasts, warm frozen nights, and cook what was once inedible. In its glow, fear turns to love. Fire is not just survival, it is the first spark of human mastery. A hunter is fragile, too slow to chase, too weak to kill. But when voices rise and unspoken rhythm, when hands move with shared intent, something changes. Together, they drive prey into traps, encircle giants, and defend against lurking predators. Teamwork becomes a weapon sharper than stone. Every shared victory binds the group tighter, turning survival into community. In struggle, they discover a truth that will echo through time. Intelligence and unity matter more than muscle. Here, society itself begins to take shape. In the beginning, survival rested on nothing more than a broken stone. Crude flakes, chipped from larger rocks, offered edges sharp enough to slice flesh, yet brittle against the fury of wild beasts. These old Darwin tools, rough and simple, marked the first spark of invention, a fragile line between hunger and a meal. But the story didn't end there. Across generations, hands grew wiser, crafting Acheulean hand axes, balanced and strong. With these, hides could be stripped, bones cracked, marrow claimed. Each strike of stone turned weakness into courage. The weapon was more than survival, it was the birth of hope. Flames once kept the darkness at bay, But soon they revealed another secret. When wood met fire, it hardened, reshaped into something sharper, deadlier. Spears thrust into the embers emerged tougher, able to pierce deeper and strike with greater force. Stone tips, lashed with sinew to sturdy shafts, gave hunters weapons fit for facing bison, elk, even the monstrous mammoth. Each improvement shifted the balance of fear. Humans grew daring. Animals grew cautious. Fire was no longer just warmth or light. It was power, fueling invention, granting tribes their first glimpse of mastery over a wild and merciless world. They move like shadows across the plain, eyes fixed on the faintest signs, hoofprints pressed into damp earth, blades of grass bent by a passing herd. Days can pass this way, with nothing to show but hunger gnawing at their bellies. For the hunters, failure is never abstract. It means children without food, elders growing weaker, the tribe pushed closer to death. When the moment of strike arrives, silence becomes unbearable. Spears lift, breath still, and time itself seems to halt. A single mistake scatters the herd. All summons a deadly charge. Yet even in defeat, lessons are carved deep, each chase forging patience, sharpening memory, and summoning the courage to try again. The ground trembles as the tribe faces the giant before them, a mammoth, towering, furious, a living wall of muscle and ivory. Breath clouds the frozen air as hunters raise their spears, hearts pounding with fear and determination. Shouts echo, a chorus of defiance against a beast that could crush them in a heartbeat. The mammoth charges, tusks tearing furrows in the earth, but the circle holds. Spears fly, stone tips striking hide. While fire and noise confuse the beast, step by step, unity prevails until the giant falters, then crashes to the ground. Survival becomes triumph proof that humankind can challenge nature itself. Flames crackle as smoke curls into the night, carrying the scent of roasted meat across the frozen plains. The tribe gathers close, their bodies warmed not just by fire, but by triumph. Children laugh, elders murmur tales of the hunt, and hunters pass down wisdom etched in memory. Nothing is wasted. The hide becomes clothing, the bones tools, the sinew bindings. Around the fire, survival transforms into celebration, and in that circle, humanity discovers something greater than food, the roots of belonging. The hunt did not begin with the throw of a spear, but with silence. I searched the earth for signs, a hoofprint pressed deep into damp soil, grass bent where a heavy body brushed past, a broken twig pointing toward a hidden path. Each trace was a clue, a whisper left behind by the animal. Over time, hunters became readers of the wild. They learned the turning of the seasons, the rhythm of migrations, the warnings of a sudden storm. What outsiders might mistake for instinct was hard-earned wisdom, passed through stories beside the fire and sharpened by countless failures. Tracking became a language, binding humans to the land, where every trail and shadow revealed a chance at survival. Strength alone was never enough against the speed of deer or the bulk of bison. To survive, humans leaned on patience and foresight. Pits were dug and lined with sharpened stakes, their mouths hidden beneath branches and earth. Snares of twisted sinew tightened silently around an unsuspecting leg. At narrow crossings, hunters lay in wait, breath held, hearts steady. Sometimes the wait lasted days, with no promise of success. Yet strategy gave them an edge. Even fire, once a fragile ally, became a weapon of control, steering herds where hunters willed. Here, victory was born not of strength, but of cunning. Every plan carried its own shadow of danger. A trapped beast might thrash with bone-cracking force, turning victory into sudden tragedy. Fire, meant to guide the hunt, could leap out of control and sweep across the plains, threatening hunter and prey alike. Even patience held peril, for a failed ambush meant not just hunger, but the slow creep of weakness that followed. The weight pressed heavy on every step. To hunt was to gamble with life, balancing between triumph and disaster. Yet in that balance, instincts grew sharper and courage was tempered. Risk did not just endanger humanity, it forged its resilience. The drive hunt was humanity's most daring gamble. It was not the silent stalking of a single deer, nor the patient wait at a snare. It was a storm of noise and fire, a coordinated surge of will against nature's might. Hunters fanned out across the plains, their voices rising in unison, torches blazing in the dusk. Stones flew, drums of feet pounded the earth, and a sea of bison surged forward in blind panic. The ground shook like thunder as the herd pressed. Toward the cliff, dust choked the air. The roar of animals drowned thought itself. And in that chaos lay both danger and hope. Then came the plunge and avalanche of muscle and bone crashing into the void. Silence followed, heavy and awe-filled. The fallen beasts lay below, a harvest of flesh, hide, and bone that could sustain an entire community for weeks. Yet this victory was never certain. One wrong turn, one gap in the line, and hunters could find themselves trampled beneath the very force they sought to control. But when it worked, it was more than survival. It was proof that through unity and courage, humans could bend the wild to their will. The drive hunt was not just his strategy, it was the moment when mankind began to master the impossible, when the fires dimmed and the echoes of the hunt faded. What endured was not only the meat or the hides, but the knowledge carved into memory. Each track studied, each trap set, each hunt endured became a lesson in patience and foresight. The drive hunts demanded timing, trust, and unity, teaching that survival was never the work of one, but of many. These skills seeped into daily life, shaping how humans built bonds, shared burdens, and planned for tomorrow. Long before walls rose into villages or kings claimed thrones, the wild had already taught its most powerful truth, that intelligence, not brute strength, was humanity's sharpest weapon. When the beast finally lay still, the triumph of the hunt gave way to an even greater task. The kill was never a simple prize, it was a responsibility. The hunters and their families gathered, knowing that every part of the fallen creature carried meaning. Fresh meat was carved and roasted over open flames, its smoke drifting into the cold air. Strips were hung to dry, turned into rations that could outlast the hunger of winter. The animal's hide, thick and warm, was scraped clean and stitched into clothing, boots, or stretched over frames to shield families from the wind. bones, strong yet pliable, were transformed into needles, awls, and blades sharper than stone. Sinew, stripped with careful hands, was twisted into cords strong enough to bind tools or string a bow. Even the fat, gleaming in the firelight, found its purpose rendered into fuel for lamps that burned through the long nights, casting flickering shadows on cave walls where stories were told. Nothing was left to rot or go unused. To waste was to court death. This practice carried more than practicality. It forged a kind of reverence. Each animal's life was acknowledged in the way its body was honored. One creature fed, clothed, and warned many, its sacrifice woven into the survival of the group. In this cycle, humans learned that existence was not measured by the single strike of a spear, but by how well they turned loss into life. The hunt did not end with death. It continued in the resourcefulness, respect, and resilience that would carry humanity forward. Hunting was never only about food. Over time, it became sacred, a ritual that blended survival with belief. Before setting out, hunters gathered in circles, painting their skin with ash and clay, chanting words that bound them together in courage. In the flicker of firelight, caves turned into sacred halls, their walls alive with painted animals, creatures yet to be taken, summoned in shadow and color. The hunt carried meaning beyond survival, a bond with unseen forces, where every step felt guided by something greater. A full hunt brought triumph, but also burden. Around the fire, eyes turned to the hunters, waiting for sustenance and fairness. Meat was more than food. It was a measure of trust, a bond that stitched the tribe together. Every cut carried meaning. To share was survival, to hoard was betrayal. Failure meant hunger gnawing at both body and spirit, sparking tension in fragile bonds. In these moments, generosity became power, and from the act of dividing flesh, the earliest roots of leadership quietly emerged. In the glow of fire, the hunt was reborn. Flames licked the stone, casting movement over painted bison, mammoths, and deer, as if the walls themselves remembered the chase. These figures were not decoration, but messages, echoes of triumph, loss, and survival etched in color and ash. For children, they were lessons. For hunters, reminders of what the wild demanded. Each stroke was both celebration and caution, prayer and record. Long before written words, these walls carried voices that refused to be silenced. Hunting was never just a task, it became inheritance. Around fires, elders showed the young how to cut sinew, where to strike, and when to move with silence. Rituals etched discipline into memory, while the act of sharing turned meals into bonds. These customs ensured more than survival. They shaped identity. In giving and receiving, humanity discovered trust, belief, and unity. From blood and tradition rose the earliest echoes of culture seeds, destined to outlive the Stone Age itself. The world began to change. Nomadic fires, once temporary, gave way to hearths that stayed lit. Instead of chasing herds across endless plains, hands pressed seeds into soil, and animals once hunted were kept within wooden enclosures. Yet the spirit of the hunt lingered. The patience of stalking became the patience of waiting for rain. The cooperation of the chase turned into shared labor in fields. Farming was no sudden invention, but a reshaping of old instincts and evolution carved from survival itself. The hunt was more than a struggle for food, it was a forge for the human mind. Each chase demanded memory to recall trails, foresight to predict movements, and unity to succeed. Brains swelled under this pressure, unlocking the power to plan, to shape tools, and to share knowledge. Around firelight, strategies became language. Stories and ritual. Survival sharpened imagination, and imagination built culture. From the chase, humanity gained not just meals, but the first outlines of civilization. It begins with a hand, a spark, and a shard of stone struck sharp against the dark. That first blade was more than survival, it was a declaration of control. With it, hunters carved meat, cut hides, and shaped wood, bending nature to human will. Each chipped edge whispered possibility. From those fragile sparks came confidence to build, explore, and dream. The stone blade was not just a tool, it was the seed of civilization itself. Beneath the glow of modern cities, the shadow of the past still lingers. Humanity walks on ground shaped by hunger, cold, and the constant threat of death. The walls of glass and steel feel solid, yet history whispers how easily they could fall. The Stone Age reminds us that security is young and survival never guaranteed. Strip away machines, and we stand exposed, once more fragile, yet carrying the same courage that once lit fires in the dark. From trembling prey to fearless hunter, humanity rose against the wilderness. Claws and fangs once ruled the night, yet persistence, unity, and imagination reshaped the struggle. The Stone Age closed, but its lessons burned on courage in hardship, patience in waiting, and strength in cooperation. These truths became the compass of civilization, carrying humankind from survival to creation, from endurance to vision, and from the edge of extinction to the heart of history.